G'day folks, this is what we're dealing with here, and it's this small Bachmann coupling, and it's the screw-on type, and it has a short shank. There's a long shank version available as well, but I prefer the short shank for closer coupling. Now the method I was using with this before was the Brian Kirby method, which involved fitting the staple to the drop down hook there, as you can see, and it worked fairly well. However, when it was in operation, you got a sort of a pulsing sort of motion as it went over the magnets, and it's a bit like this. You can see that it's jumping up and down there, and that was annoying me a bit, so I came up with this idea here of fitting the staple to the top and back of the coupling hook, and the idea is to get a bit more leverage and hopefully reduce that pulsing effect, and it's also a better look too, I think. And so I've made a few of them up now, and you can see that you don't get anywhere near as much pulsing, which is evident in the video here. I've also changed the way I've set up the magnets. Instead of putting them on top of the sleepers with a bit of a strip on top to disguise them, I've now decided that I'll put them down in between the sleepers. I mean, folks have suggested that I should replace sleepers and use the magnets to look like sleepers, but it's actually quite a job to do that, and the sleepers actually keep the magnets apart. Now these are the staples I'm using, simply because I've got thousands of them and I've had them for 50 years or something or other, so I'm going to use them up. And you know, it saves going out and buying a whole bunch of staples, which would probably be pretty much the same as these anyway. These ones are 12 millimeters long, and the height, I suppose you could call it, is 6 millimeters, as you'll see in this next slide that comes up. So yeah, that's what we're using, and I'm using those for the coupling hook, and also as a little bar on the back of the wagons, which we'll show you in a while. Now to bend the staples, I've made myself up a jig. The angle at the top there on that pointy bit is 30 degrees, but when you actually bend the wire, it's not actually 30, it's probably I don't know, 28 or something. You just slip the staple in that slot there, and you can hold it with the bottom piece on the left of the aluminium, and then you simply just bend it to shape up the top there. Just take it out, and I've got a little tool on the side there, a little hole in a piece of aluminium. I just push the shape through and then snip it off to the right size. Just next to that, I've put 3 panel pins into the timber to hold the coupling, to help me solder the staple onto the coupling. It's, you know, you're dealing with small parts here, and you've got to find some way of holding them steady. So I've also got this piece of aluminium that slides around over the staple to hold it in place while I fiddle around with the solder. The addition of this staple on the back of the coupling also means that you need to make a bit of a hole in the coupling itself for clearance, so the thing can actually move. The original hole there is way too small to accommodate the staple, so a bit is drilled out just to help with that process. Now folks, you've probably noticed in some of the other pictures that I am making my own couplings as well, and it saves me using 2 backmans per wagon, and I'm only using 1 coupling hook per wagon, so I thought I'd have a go at making my own. And so this is how they shape up. I think they don't look too bad, and yes, it helps with the finances as well. I mean, we're not talking a lot of money, but there's the fun of doing it as well. And this is the stuff I'm using to make the couplings. It's like the stuff that's used in these adjustable hose clamps, and I picked it up somewhere for a couple of bucks years ago, and this is the brand name. So I don't know how much it is or where you get it or even if it still exists, but this is what it is, and I just cut it up and make my own couplings out of it. So you don't have to do that though. You can take the backman coupling and cut a mount hole in it much closer to the front of the coupling there, and fit that onto the wagon, and you will get almost exactly the same result. And so that saves you doing anything like I'm doing, and makes the whole process a bit easier, I suppose. I'm also using one of those staples that we mentioned earlier, and I'm mounting it centrally on the back of the wagon and 5 millimeters above the coupling. Now, the purpose of this is to keep the coupling hook raised when the wagons are over the magnet, and then when you push the wagons together, this bar stops the coupling hook from dropping and gives you the delayed action uncoupling. So you can push wagons around with the hook in the elevated position resting against the bar, and you have your delayed action uncoupling. Okay folks, I guess that's enough explanation and detail for this part of the presentation. So what we might do now is put some video on and show this thing in use on the layout.